Jenrick is sacked from the shadow cabinet and accused of plotting to defect. The Conservative leader didn't say which party her former Shadow Justice Secretary was planning to switch to as she announced the move.
I was very sorry to be presented with clear, irrefutable evidence, not just that he was preparing to defect, but he was planning to do so in the most damaging way possible.
Also this lunchtime, nurses say emergency care is broken and call it a type of torture for patients. Campaigners call for pothole repairs after figures show they cause drivers over 1,000 incidents daily. And Ayana Lee tells us how a DM landed her a part in a film with Denzel Washington.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, was dramatically sacked this morning by his Conservative boss, Kemi Badenoch. She threw him out of the party after seeing what she called irrefutable evidence that he was plotting to defect. Mr. Jenrick had long attracted speculation about his continuing leadership ambitions. He lost out to her at the final ballot of the last Conservative election. As for where he's going next, it's still not been confirmed this lunchtime, but the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage did reveal that he has been in talks with Mr. Jenrick. We'll have the latest from Fife, where Mr. Farage was speaking earlier, in just a moment. First to our political correspondent, Shihab Khan in Westminster. Shihab, this is a hugely significant moment for the Tories.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert Jenrick has been quite a big player within the Conservative Party for quite some time. He's a former cabinet minister. He serves in the shadow cabinet, as you've already mentioned there. And it's not very long ago that he was pipped to the post of becoming Conservative Party leader. He came second to Kemi Badenoch not very long ago. But in that time, while he's been serving in the shadow cabinet, there's been a lot of talk about his future leadership ambitions. He's someone who's viewed as being incredibly ambitious. He's been posting a lot on social media, engaging with young people on TikTok and Instagram with sort of catchy social media videos that we hadn't seen many politicians do. This move from Kemi Badenoch comes as a bit of a surprise. We've had the confirmation that he was having talks with Nigel Farage. Here's what Kemi Badenoch posted today as an explanation as to why she did it.
It is my responsibility to protect our party, and faced with that information, I took the only decision that any responsible leader could. Because the British public are tired of political psychodrama. So am I.
Now, there are reports that there may have been a resignation speech that was left lying around, and that's the evidence that she is talking about. This comes off of the back of a number of Tory MPs defecting to Reform UK. We had Nadeem Zahawi, a former Conservative Chancellor, announce his defection just a few days ago. It talks a lot about the position of the Conservative Party. They can't afford to keep losing senior figures to Reform. That's one of the reasons why Kemi Badenoch has acted so quickly. The question now, and we haven't heard from Robert Jenrick, is he going to go to Reform UK? And if he is, when exactly does he plan on doing so?
Shihab Khan, thank you very much. Let's pick up on Robert Jenrick's rumoured move to Reform UK. Nigel Farage was speaking to reporters about his party's new leader in Scotland when the news broke, and it dominated questions at the press conference. Our Scotland correspondent Peter Smith was there. Peter, talk us through what it was like in the room.
Well, this was supposed to be all about one former Tory, Lord Malcolm Offord, who had defected to Reform, already being anointed as their leader in Scotland. Instead, it became all about another Conservative being sacked because he was allegedly plotting to Reform. In fact, the news was broken to Nigel Farage just behind me here, 10 minutes after that press conference started this morning to announce their new leader. You can see the moment where he was shown by a member of his staff the breaking news and reacted with a smile. I then put it to Nigel Farage, asking him if the door would be open to Robert Jenrick to defect to Reform, and here's what he told me.
Has been really clear. The detail behind this sacking is she says there was a secret plot
and that's why Robert Jenrick has been sacked. Well, she's made the allegation.
I know, and she's flapped, and she's panicked, and she clearly thought at 4:30 this afternoon Robert Jenrick was going to join.
It's the report, Mr.
He was not going to join. There was no plot for him to join at 4:30 this afternoon. There's no plot. There are many private conversations happening between myself, senior Conservative figures at all levels around this country, including the House of Commons, including the House of Lords, including what's left of them in English county councils. There aren't many of them. And there is an open debate about this.
Now, clearly this has overshadowed that new announcement of the Reform having their first ever Scottish leader, and afterwards Nigel Farage left pretty swiftly. You heard him referencing there, he has another event in London about 4:30 this afternoon. He has denied that is going to be the occasion where Robert Jenrick is unveiled, but it's a quickly changing and developing story, so let's see.
Peter Smith, thank you. NASA has carried out a medical evacuation from 250 miles above Earth. 4 astronauts, including one who had developed a health problem last week, splashed down in the Pacific overnight. Officials would not identify which of the crew had been affected or exactly what happened. Here's Jay Akbar.
Splashing down a month early, Crew 11 of the International Space Station.
After 167 days in space,
for the first time in its 25 years, a mission was cut short after one of them fell seriously ill.
That's NASA astronaut Zena Cardman wrapping up her first mission to space.
As they felt gravity for the first time in months, NASA wouldn't say which one of them was sick or the cause.
So we took this action because it was a serious medical condition, right? You know, in that respect, it was a serious situation. The astronaut in question is fine. 3, 2, 1.
The 4 astronauts launched in August last year and expected to stay around 6 months. They'd been researching human health in deep space and the effects of microgravity on viruses. The mission was going to plan until a spacewalk last week was cancelled and their unscheduled return announced shortly after. With both medicine and equipment on board, ISS crews are trained to deal with emergencies. They are also, NASA says, ready to return at a moment's notice.
They talk to the ground on a regular basis. I would tell you they were even cracking jokes a couple times. So, you know, sad, but they're professional and they understand what happens when you fly in space.
Mission to space.
The crew will now undergo checks at a NASA medical facility. While they get back on their feet, another crew of 4 are already preparing to replace them on the ISS. Jay Akbar, ITV News.
The US President Donald Trump said he's been told the killing has stopped in Iran and that the scheduled executions of detained protesters has been called off. It comes as the family of Efran Sultani, who was found guilty of participating in anti-government protests, told the human rights group Hengor his execution had been postponed. Iranian state media has denied he has been sentenced to death. An NHS patient who was left for more than 4 days in hospital corridors has told ITV News his treatment was inhuman. It comes as the Royal College of Nursing warns corridor care has become a permanent fixture in NHS hospitals, with some nursing staff describing the conditions as a type of torture. Peter, not his real name, contacted ITV News after seeing our secretly filmed footage at the Royal Liverpool University Hospital and spoke to us from the hospital.
This is going to be the worst experience of my life ever. It just makes you feel inhuman. It makes you feel that you don't matter, and as if, you know, you can just do what you like with you. It's mental cruelty. I wouldn't like anyone to go through this. I wouldn't like your worst enemy to go through this, because it's not human and it's not right.
This morning, the Health Secretary had this to say to Peter.
Do you want to apologise personally to that patient? I am so sorry to patients who are on trolleys in corridors, because when I came into this office 18 months ago, the NHS was using language like temporary escalation spaces to normalise something that should never be normal or considered acceptable, because corridor care is never dignified care. That's why I've committed to eradicate it over the course of this Parliament.
The number of people waiting more than 12 hours in A&E departments in England from a decision to admit to actually being admitted, including so-called corridor care, stood at more than 50,000 last month. Joining me now is the boss of Royal College of Nursing for England, Patricia Marquis. Thank you very much for coming in. We heard Peter's experience there. You can see the trauma on his face. Take us through some of the things that your nurse members have told you.
It's harrowing for me to hear somebody describing that experience as a nurse, but my colleagues in practice describing that time and time again. You mentioned a patient being sat on a chair for 4 days. It's incredible to think that that's what's expected in our country. People being cared for in places that have been quickly converted from a doctor's office or a staff dining room even, and people being cared for 2, 3, 4 abreast in corridors. It's just not the way to give care.
And nurses describing not only having to treat people and try to care for people in that context, but also trying to protect people's dignity with a bit of a sheet or something.
Yeah, so one nurse told us about a patient who'd just come back from surgery and they needed to do some intimate care to them, and another nurse had to hold up a sheet, a white sheet, a bed sheet, to protect their dignity from other people. And there's examples of there being no toilet facilities, so patients who could well easily go to a toilet having to use a commode in what's a fairly public space, in truth.
Look, we are in a situation where even the Health Secretary is talking about how this has become everyday normal in NHS hospitals in England. You've said in terms of, the RCN has said in terms of the impact on staff, that it's past the point of no return. What does that look like for both nurses and patients?
For nurses, they now don't believe it's going to change. Morale is at an all-time low, and they are actually normalising this practice themselves, and that's what we've got to be so mindful of. We need to reverse this as quickly as possible.
The Department of Health has said that they are determined to fix that. Is there any sense that it feels like help is coming for as you say, the nurses going through this, and of course any one of us who has to go to A&E for any reason?
Sadly, no. I think the truth that our members, 1 year on from our survey last year, are telling us the same story but worse. And no sense to us from our members that things are getting any better at all, or sign of change. 2029 to eradicate it is too long. It needs to be done now.
If you had Wes Streeting sitting here right now, what's your one piece of advice to try to fix this quicker than that?
They need more beds and more staff to staff those beds.
Okay, Patricia Marquis, thank you very much for coming in to speak to me. Thank you. And you'll see more of this, including our health correspondent Rebecca Barry's interview with Peter while he was still in hospital, on our website. That's at itv.com/news. Next, the regulator Ofwat has put South East Water under official investigation. The firm is still tackling a major outage that left tens of thousands of homes without water in recent days. And while the supplies are now being restored, the disruption is not yet over. Joe Caution is in Tunbridge Wells, where work is underway to try to get the pipes flowing. Joe, bring us up to speed on the probe by the watchdog.
Well, Nina, that probe will be looking into whether South East Water appropriately supported affected customers during supply interruptions, both during the 2 weeks we saw last month and the 9 days and counting of intermittent supply here now. But the dozens of people I've spoken to over the last few weeks say they absolutely haven't, and they're worried that this investigation by Ofwat is a little bit toothless, that it's all bark and no bite. They're worried that any outcome that could be a financial penalty will just be passed on to them as customers in their water bills, when all they want is to see consistent consistent water supply and their taps running again. As for the situation here, South East Water turned off booster pumps last night as part of a 36-hour recovery plan, and they're using huge tankers like the one behind me, one of 26 deployed in the area, to start pumping water back into the network. Sounds like a great plan on paper, except they didn't include deliveries to the local schools. 4 have been shut today. One head teacher told us he was furious because they were expecting a water tanker delivery yesterday that never arrived, and another principal has said that they've had to take matters into their own hands, ordering their own portaloos just so students can sit exams next week, just because they don't trust South East Water to support them.
It just continues to be an endless cycle of lack of communication, no communication, miscommunication, which is resulting in it making it so difficult for school leaders and those associated with schools in order to make decisions. I mean, if I ran this place like South East Water is currently being run, I don't think I'd have my job very much longer.
Well, South East Water has apologised again and say they are on track to return consistent water supply here in Tunbridge Wells tomorrow morning. Not all sorted though. We're hearing 1,000 homes in nearby South Tunbridge and Bidborough are now without water. When it rains, it pours.
Joe Cushion, thank you very much. Thank you. The AA say they've received more than 600,000 call-outs due to potholes last year. Motorists face an average repair bill of around £350 a time. And while some councils are doing their best to respond to problems on the roads, there are concerns these are too often just a short-term fix. Our consumer editor Chris Choi was out with a road repair team in Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah, just look here behind me, you can probably make out a pothole. I know you've probably seen plenty of them. In fact, there's new data out today that shows 1,600 pothole-related incidents a day across the UK. But what you might not have seen is one of them actually being repaired. And if you look carefully, you can see that going on. And with me is Ben Rawding, who's a highways expert. What's going on here?
What we've got here, Chris, is the Pothole Pro, a machine that's cutting, cropping, cleaning, permanent repairs.
And it can do it in 8 minutes.
Absolutely. 4 times quicker, half the cost of traditional methods.
But a lot of people will know that just because a repair has happened doesn't mean to say it's permanent. So often they crop up again, and that infuriates people, that these repairs don't always seem to last. What can be done about that?
That's why we're calling for a 5-year warranty on these repairs, using not just the innovation, but making sure that council budgets are going further and the money is spent on permanent repairs.
So you want a proper guarantee with every one of these repairs. You can see the fixing going on behind me. You might find it remarkable that local authorities don't get those kind of guarantees. After all, if you go to a shop to buy something simple like a kettle, you'd expect a guarantee, but despite spending millions of pounds on repairs like this, it seems local authorities aren't getting them. We spoke to the councils. They say they face a £17 billion highway repair backlog, and they want more permanent funding to address the problem. Meanwhile, central government says it's investing a record £7.3 billion into fixing our roads. But despite all the numbers and all this talk, in so many places, the potholes remain.
The UK economy has returned to growth as GDP rose 0.3% in November. The latest figures show growth was driven by an increase in industrial output, helped by the return to production at Jaguar Land Rover following a cyber attack. The Chancellor's November budget also led to an increase in demand for services, including accounting and tax consultancy. And the Technology Secretary has said she will not rest until all social media companies comply with the law, as she welcomed new restrictions on X's AI chatbot Grok. It announced last night that it would prevent users on the platform from editing images of people in revealing clothes following recent criticism. And finally, she's the up-and-coming British-born soul singer who's now tipped for Hollywood Awards success. Ayana Lee stars in the climax of Highest to Lowest. It's directed by the Oscar winner Spike Lee, who cast her after hearing her sing online. And she says, after a decade spent chasing her dreams in Los Angeles, she could barely believe it when he asked to meet. She spoke to our reporter, Kath Okpater.
She's Hollywood's new breakout star, Ayana Lee, alongside Denzel Washington, who plays a music producer in Spike Lee's latest film, a producer with an ear for talent. Now, it's not every day that you end up working with Denzel Washington in a Spike Lee film. How did that happen?
It was 6 a.m. I was scrolling as you do, and I see that I have a message in my inbox on Instagram. I'm like, okay, let's check it out, right? I showed my mom. I was like, I think Spike Lee might have DM'd me. And she's like, man, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep, babe. And turned out to actually be him. He asked me where I lived. I was like, yo, I'm in Los Angeles. He happened to that day be in Los Angeles, and we met in real life.
This chance virtual encounter led to a role in the film Highest to Lowest, with a debut performance so powerful, her co-stars were on the verge of tears. What was it like working with Denzel Washington?
Man, he was crying on set, you know?
Ayana has now been catapulted to a stage she'd never imagined, nominated for a string of film awards. Yes, she is atop the hills of Hollywood, but her journey began much closer to home. Obviously, you're in LA right now, but originally you're a London gal.
Born and raised in London, in Wembley, actually. Came to Los Angeles when I was 15 and, had been chasing a dream with a lot of rejection, almost being homeless, for me to finally be like, I'm gonna give it my every single piece of me. I have to figure out a way to do it.
That perseverance has clearly paid off, and say what you want about Ayana Lee, her voice travels far. Come on. Worthy of a round of applause. Kath Okpater, ITV News.
And that's all from us for now. Lucrezia will be here with the ITV Evening News at 6:30. The news where you are is next from everyone on the Lunchtime team. Have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye for now.